What's up, everybody? I'm Hope.
And I'm Kadero.
And welcome to H&K Chronicles.
A podcast by your favorite couple, Every Day with H&K.
We hope you're inspired by our love and our laughter.
And whatever conversations come from this.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy. What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Hello.
What's up?
That's what I'm saying. It's H&K Chronicles.
Hey.
It's a podcast by your favorite couple, Every Day with H&K.
That's us.
I'm H, Hope.
I'm
and
K.
Here,
Kadero.
There we go again. I am a firm believer this is just going to happen every episode.
Kadero.
Oh, that sounded a little... No, go back down. Try it again.
Was that too high?
Yeah. Try it again.
Kadero.
We're working on it, ladies and gentlemen. We're working on it. However, anyways,
okay.
it was a good attempt.
You trying to play me?
Good attempt.
She's trying to play me right now.
We just want to say hello and give a huge shout out to the people who are watching this video. That means you are a homie. That means you are supporting us at our highest level on Patreon.
Hey.
And you guys are seeing this video of our podcast. We love you, adore you, appreciate you so much.
Yes.
And outside of that, we also got to give a shout out to H&K Nation.
H&K Nation,
we
what's
feel y'all
good?
Love all out there. We love
H&K
you guys.
Nation, stand up.
That's what I'm saying. Y'all have been riding with us for a long time. We appreciate it. Well, not that long. We only been on here since March. But y'all been there from the beginning.
From the beginning. Those who've been there from the beginning.
Yeah. We appreciate you. Love is felt.
No doubt about it.
But anyway, so we got all this housekeeping stuff out the way, right?
Yeah, just make sure you, if you want to watch the video of our podcast, that you check us out on Patreon, man. Like, it's a great platform to give a monthly subscription, and it as low as like $2. But you get like bonus content, exclusive content from us.
Yep.
If you do go to the tier where you give us, I think it's like $10
max.
$10 a month.
Yep.
Then you get the podcast video every week when it's out, and then
Bonus
so
content, all that
get all the
stuff.
other good stuff though.
Yes.
So, and then there's some stuff we just don't put out on
the internet.
On the internet. So you get it. Well, it's on the internet for you. Only you. Hey.
Views only.
Views only.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Perfect. All right. So this episode, we have gotten this question a lot. So we figured we'd just do a podcast on it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have asked us, one, like, are you guys that happy, like in real life? Like, are you guys, is this really y'all? And we're like, honestly, yes, this is us.
Yeah.
And people always assume for some reason that because we're this happy, like we never go through anything. And we are here to say, guys, we are normal people. We struggle with things just like everybody else.
Yep.
We have had our moments in our marriage where we have cried ourselves to sleep at night. Like, it's just those moments that we have experienced some stuff. So it's like a lot of people, we get this question of how do you overcome a hard situation in your marriage? Or with a hard situation that you two have been faced with, how did you get through it? How did you overcome it? You know, have you guys ever considered divorce or separating or anything like that? Because I think at some point, you know, people get tired of dealing with stuff and they want to go do their own thing. But how did you guys make it? How are you guys still together? So we're just going to kind of dig into that a little bit. And talk about that.
And disclaimer, we not experts. We don't have degrees in this. This is just us sharing our personal testimonies, personal experience to help others, man. Because like through our experience, we hope that it can make an impact to people, for other people to make the right decisions and to know that you're not alone.
Absolutely.
You're not alone in this, man. There are millions of people out here in the same situation. We don't know it. But you're never isolated in these moments. So we hope that listening to our podcast, or sharing our podcast or sharing our words can help somebody out there to feel like, okay, I don't have to go through this alone. I know there's a blueprint out there, and these are the steps they took, and hopefully I can take the same steps to help me through those times.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my question would be, do you want to start with an experience that we've been through and work these steps, or do you want to kind of...
Let's start with the experience. I think the steps come into greater picture. You see them more knowing the experience. So we're going to use this experience for ours. So I had been on a job for it was going on my 4th year. Very it's good paying job. Just got a promotion on this job.
Yep.
And loved where we were at. We had great people that we were surrounded by. And it came a time, it was interesting because we both had a feeling something was going to shift.
Absolutely.
With this job, but we were just, taking it day to day. But one day I came into the office and brought into the boss office and was let go. And so it was like, what do you do now?
What just happened?
And there was probably so many emotions and so many thoughts running through my mind at the time, because like, what did I do? And I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. And there can be a lot of political play in what was happening. And I was like, okay, what did I do? Where do I go from here?
Right.
As a man, how do I now take care of my family? Because I am considered the protector, the provider. That was how I wanted to be seen. And so I don't know what to do. And then there was like other things that were going to be happening in the next few months. Like if I didn't have a job in the next few months, we weren't going to have a place to live. Like there was.
Well, hold on. Let's back this up just for a second. Because the thing was, we were at a point where my job prior to that, the job that I had went through this whole thing where I didn't want it anymore. I wanted to venture out on my own. I talked to Kadero about what I wanted to do. He was all for it. He alone with his salary was supporting us. So he was like, babe, if you don't want that job or, whatever, like step out, do your own thing. So I was feeling good. I was like, okay, I'm about to do this. I put in my resignation letter, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So literally we thought we were good. Yeah. At one point, Kadero was like, go ahead,
Yeah.
So I sent in my resignation letter, and literally
it was a week later
that you were let go. And I mean, for me as a wife, I was like, well, oh my gosh, I just quit my job. Like, and now I could have been providing in this moment where he, wasn't necessarily like getting, well, I mean, you were getting something at the end of the day, like they paid you or whatever. But it was like, why did I just do that? Like, why did I just, I took it so hard on myself because I was like, I just quit. And literally a week later, you lost your job. So I felt like crap, I think, at that moment. And it was just one of those things that was like, our lease was about to be up at the apartment, and we were about to like renew, and like it was just, the timing of everything was insane. So at that point, we decided not to renew because we were like, well, dang, if we just, if you lost your job, what's the point of staying here? Yeah. Like, what are we going to do? So at this point, we have a lease that's ending. Neither one of us has a job. And we don't know where we're going to live, move, how we're going to get there. We had a dog at the time. We were like, it's just, what are we doing?
What are we doing with our life?
So we literally sat
God, I need you.
Yeah. We literally sat in that moment, like, just sat there.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to pick up, if you had anything else that you wanted to share about the job.
No, it was that was pretty much it. No need to get in further details on it, but it was like, though, in that moment, it was just like, wow. And I did not know what was next.
Right. And I think that at this point, we had, I mean, of course they had told Kadero, we'd pay you X amount for however many months, but it was one of those things that we just sat there in that moment, like, what are we going to do? At this point, with the profession he was in, it was one of those things that it wasn't necessarily like hiring season. Would you say it was? Well, kind of.
It kind of was, but it was. It's not hard. It's not a easy, just like throwing your application and you're gonna get an interview. It's like it's all about who you know. So
absolutely.
It wasn't one of those easy, I can just get a job like that type thing. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that, of course, as a wife, I'm furious. furious because of the way everything happened. But I'm furious because now I am experiencing my husband in this new way. Remind you, we had never gone through this before, and at this point, we had probably been married for like
10 years.
8.
No, 8 years.
Yeah, like 8-9 years, somewhere around there. Details are a little fuzzy. But at this point, like throughout that entirety of our marriage, at that point, we hadn't dealt with a loss of a job. And it was one of those things that we didn't know how each other would necessarily be in that moment.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what are we doing? And we both are very spiritual and believe in God. And it was one of those moments where I felt like God was like, okay, faith activation on. Like, because at that point,
faith activation on.
Yes, we had nothing else to go off of. Like, we were at that point like, God, whatever move happens next has to be done by you. Like, because we don't have any answers. Mm-hmm. We were like, do we go live with family? Do we go, like, where do we go?
Where do we go?
From here. So I think it was one of those things. At that point, I knew, okay, I can't overreact as a wife. Because one, Kadero already has enough that he is processing through his mind right now, and I know he's such a hard worker. He's probably wondering, what did I do wrong? Where did it go left? Could I have done something better? How am I going to provide for my wife? Like, all of those thoughts are going through his mind. So it's not wise. Just hoping no wife would ever be the type of, I can't believe you lost your job, or what did you do wrong? Like, at that point, he didn't need that from me. At that point, he needed me to be there to listen to him, to support him in that moment, to pray for him. And I think that was my first step, was one, prayer. It sounds so cliche, but that was the only thing that calmed me down in that moment, because I was furious. I mean, it's still a trigger for me at some point. But I think it's literally like praying for guidance and asking God, okay, God, in this moment, how can I help Kadero? How can I assist him? How can I be the person he needs me to be right now? So it's kind of like, I need to get myself together, work on myself a little bit, and figure out, okay, Hope, he doesn't need to see that you're angry right now. He doesn't need to see that you're stressed, or that you are confused or not trusting him in this moment. So like, working on myself. And at that point, I think it was one of those things that, okay, now that I've collected myself, now I can shift the focus and properly give you the person that you needed in that moment.
That's interesting, like, hearing you say that. And like, I wondered how you would react, because not in the thing, I knew you wouldn't react in a way of like, oh, how could you? But knowing me, and I can tell people, like, I am a very, I can hold things in. And so I think one of the things I've learned, in, like, when you talk about overcoming difficult times, you mentioned prayer, and I think that's key. And praying for me, praying for the situation was huge for you. And it's interesting that depending on what spot you are, how you take those steps of what you have to do to overcome that in your marriage is going to be different. Because her first step was probably the prayer. Mine was trying to communicate, because I knew who I was, I'm just gonna hold it in, and not talk about it, not be vulnerable about it. But she needed to hear from me, and like, it was tough, because I needed to express, to start the process of healing, getting over it, and just moving forward. I needed to express how I was feeling. Yeah. And so, for me, I think, and for anything, and once again, I guess you've probably heard this many times in our podcast, is communication. Yeah. And during this time, especially as a man, you're feeling like a failure, and feeling like you haven't done things right, or whatever feelings I was having, like, I needed to be able to communicate that to you. And that was probably tough, because at first it was like, I don't want to even deal with it. Like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm pissed off. And how I am is I hold it in. But it was like, I had to be able to be vulnerable with you and communicate how I was feeling. Right. And allow myself to be angry. And say that to you.
Yes, I think that's so key, because it's easy, like, when you're in those moments, to shut down. Like, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to dwell on it. But at the same time, you need to talk those feelings and those emotions out. And knowing Kadero being that way, like, that's when it's so important just to know your spouse in every season. And we talk about that too. Like, knowing when they're happy, when they're sad, how they deal with certain things. Because I think, like, when you were in those moments, I know you didn't want to talk about it. But it was like, part of me had to, like, force you to talk about it in a way where...
Yet give me the space to do it at my
your own
pace.
Yeah. Right. So it was one of those things that, like, we need to talk about this. I don't need you holding it in, because as we all know, when you hold stuff in, it's not good for you mentally, your health as well.
And I think that's how a lot of times depression comes on.
Absolutely.
Because of the isolation you put yourself in.
Absolutely.
And so if you're able to talk to somebody about it, it can relieve some of that.
And I think it was just interesting because, like I said, like, we didn't deal with this before. So I had never seen you in that moment where you were quiet. And I was like, and y'all see him on Instagram. I mean, y'all know how he can be. And it was just one of those things, like, he's quiet. Like, he's just sitting there. He is, not wanting to get out of the house, like, not wanting to go anywhere, because now we don't know how much longer we're going to have this income coming in. So, like, our mindset was, let's not go out. And I was like, you know what? Forget it. Let's spend $10, go to McDonald's and get something to eat without worrying about the money aspect in that moment. Like, let's just get out of the house and do something different. But I think it's just, like you said, like, you just have to communicate that with your spouse and know that, like, your spouse is going to be there for you, or should be there for you in every moment that you have, whether it's a high moment, a low moment, and realizing that you can rely on them to keep, whatever you're saying or feeling confidential in that moment. And I mean, because it's hard, guys. Like, it was hard to even tell our family at that point. Like, we both are without a job right now, and God bless our family, was so supportive. You have a place to stay. Our friends were like, you have a place to stay if you guys need anything. So, like, we knew at the end of the day that we would be okay, but it's still that personal feeling, that pride of, no, we got to figure this out. And it was one of those things where Kadero kept, like, applying, and we even went through a moment where, he would get turned down for this job because, like he said, like, the industry that he's in, they already have somebody pretty much in mind when they put out the job application process. So it was one of those things. It was just hard, and it was one job that just kept pursuing him, and it wasn't necessarily what he wanted, I guess, at that moment, because it was just different from what he was doing before. But it was one of those things that you have to learn, like, even as a wife, like, hey, they keep calling, like, look at it more so from what does God have for you at the end of the day. And even though it's not what you're used to or what you say that you wanted, it must be what you needed, because God keeps presenting this opportunity to you time after time after time. Like, God is saying, hello, I've take it. And it's one of those things that it has worked out, and it may not be necessarily what we wanted, from the beginning, but God knows exactly what you need. And God knows the purpose for your life, and God knows the plans that he has for you. So it's one of those things that we had to totally surrender and say, God, we don't have control over this situation. You are the only one that can get us through and get us to this next destination. So it was one of those things that we had to totally just remind ourselves that we don't have control at the end of the day. God is in control, and God is going to do exactly what he wants to do with us in our lives. So it was one of those things that we totally just surrendered. We were like, okay, God, we're trusting you with this. We're trusting you with this. You got to show yourself strong. And at the end of the day, I feel like we are on the exact path that we are supposed to be on. So it's like, no matter what you go through in your marriage, knowing that moment is temporary. That moment is a season. So it's one of those things that, yes, it hurts in this moment, but just realizing from a spiritual aspect that, like, God's got you at the end of the day. So that was one thing that I held on to, that I was like, that faith that you hold on to. And it's like, God has to come through. Like, God, you have no choice but to come through at the end of the day. So it was just one of those, we had to keep the faith in remembrance. We had to keep the scripture in front of us. We had to, keep feeding ourselves and not allowing the enemy to dwell in our minds and all of that stuff.
And we had to live one day at a time.
Absolutely.
Because if we didn't, we would then preoccupy our mind with what is going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
And we would miss being in the moment with each other and seeing the strides and the intimacy that was happening. Like what we fail to realize, like, and we may not even seen it in that moment, but going back and remembering, like, the communication that we was having, the prayer time we were having, the faith that we were having was even building a deeper intimacy with each other.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about how to overcome those hard times in marriages, a lot of times when you have the hard times, if you're not doing those things, you separate. You go into your own corner, they go into their own corner, you're over there trying to figure things out. And instead of coming together, being more intimate with each other, and it doesn't. And I'm not talking about a sexual intimacy; it's a spiritual and and an emotional intimacy that's happening because we're talking and we're praying and those type of things. And that was so key to say, wow, we're gonna overcome this. Like, but we're gonna take this day by day, and we're gonna not think too much on the future, not dwell in the past, but just be in the moment and take it day by day and know that God has us. And when we realized that, then it was like, okay, another way to overcome this, just be us. Have fun, laugh, find the sense of humor, do those things. Like you said, we couldn't worry about that. We had wisdom.
Right. Absolutely.
But we also was like, we can't allow this to stop from doing a fun drive out.
Because I even remember, like, because we used to love a good steakhouse, or we go out to these restaurants and just have a great time out. But it was one of those things that, like, we knew we still wanted to, or those things were important for us to have those moments. But I remember we did a movie night and we made a picnic in our living room and we had dominoes. And it was one of those things that it was like the meal probably cost us $10 max, or 15 maybe max. But it was one of those.
You like those chicken?
I do like the chicken with the barbecue and the cheese. I'm just saying. But it was one of those things that it was like,
Hook us up, Domino's.
Hook us up, Domino's. But it was one of those things that it was like, I was looking for the coupon. I was looking for what we could get free. Like, to this day, I still do that. But definitely in that moment, I was like, okay, well, this person has, free deals. But we just created that moment where, okay, we may not be able to go out in this moment, but let's have a date. Let's have a picnic in the living room. Let's create a big pallet on the floor and put, like, little candles around with our dominoes. We did that, rose petals. And to me, like, I still remember that. Although it was a moment that we were both in pain, like, we made the best of that moment. And it was like, it shows me that no matter what we go through in life, we still know how to, get through it together, and we still know how to make the best out of any situation. And that's when we say, like, marriage is hard, because you have to navigate and find out who this person is in every moment. And those life situations are going to come at you, but it's how you deal with them at the end of the day that makes you stronger. Like, to me, that has definitely made us stronger, where, we just didn't know what was happening. We didn't have jobs. We didn't know where we were going to live. Like, we had nothing. But it was like, I still have that memory because it shows me at the end of the day that we can get through any and everything together. So.
And that's what I think couples always have to realize. Like, you made vows, for better or for worse.
Absolutely.
And so when those worst times happen and your back's against the wall, are you willing to work hard in overcoming this issue, and not backing down to it, and not giving up? Don't allow yourself to give up and quit and be like, you know what, this is too hard, and I can't take it anymore. And if it's something, I'm talking about something like what we're going through, like we're talking about a job loss, like that should not be something that be like, I'm giving up. That should be something like, okay, how can we work together to create a plan with one another, to encourage one another, to laugh with one another, and just keep going until something breaks.
And I think too, like, just remembering to be patient with your spouse in the process, because we talk about this all the time too. Like, we are still two individuals, and how we both deal with a loss or something like that is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing was, like you said earlier, I was pulling the stuff out of Kadero, but at the same time, it was at his pace, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay, you know, we haven't talked about this. Let's actually talk about this. Or I would open up how I was feeling, and hopefully he would join in on the conversation and kind of express his. So it's kind of like just working with them and being patient with them and knowing that, like, you can't fix the situation right away. It's not going to happen overnight. So once you realize that you don't have control and that you can't fix it right away, like just learning how to be flexible with the other person in that moment, I think is definitely key.
Yeah, and that kind of brought up for me with you trying to pulling it out of me and being patient with me during that time where she's being patient, and is working on myself. Is trying to think about it and kind of what can I do, working on myself and to make sure I don't fall into some slump, kind of build my confidence back up, knowing the truth. So that encouragement you were giving me and the patience you was giving me, I was also taking that time where I was like, okay, work on yourself right now. What are some things that get your mind off of it? What are things you like to do just to get that confidence back up in you on the work you've done?
Absolutely.
Because it's good work. And, you know, for me, I had mentors and people I could also talk to that was more so in the business I was in, the industry I was in. To say, that's we know you, Kadero.
Right.
Like, we know the work ethic you put in. So don't allow this to be don't allow this pitfall to take you down and be quicksand, but allow it to just be just a stepping stone to where you're about to go next.
Right. It's so important. And I think, like, you working on yourself, that's why I think it's so important for both people to work on themselves. Because, like I stated earlier, like, there was moments I had to definitely talk to God on my own. Like, we came together in prayer, but there was moments where I would stay in the bed and I was like, I gotta have a conversation with God because I need him to work on me in the aspect of, God, give me discernment on how to deal with Kadero. What does he need from me in this moment? Like, how do I approach him? How do I talk to him? What does he need? Does he just need a hug in this moment? Does he not need me to fix it? Does he just need for me to hold him at this moment? Like, so I was constantly at God's door, like, you know, hello, it's me again. Like, I got more questions. I need to know how to navigate this situation. So I think that's when also, for me personally, a relationship with God is so key because he can whisper those moments in your ear of he just needs you to hold his hand. He just needs you to just hear him out without saying anything back. So it's just having, you know, the Holy Spirit directing me in that moment of what you need. I think it's important to just work on yourself and talk to God.
Yeah, that's good. I want to recap a little bit.
Okay.
Like that's like we threw out a bunch of
probably just
gems,
regurgitated a lot
just
of stuff.
regurgitated. so that people can realize and they listen in this podcast and they can kind of takeaways.
Yeah.
What? So I think our first thing we talked about. So and this is just any issues you're dealing with when you're overcoming those hard times in marriage, whether it be a job loss, whether it be issues with each other, whether it be issue with kids, like anything that's kind of happening. And I would say the first thing we talked, well, not the first thing we talked about, but some of those key aspects in that and recapping everything we talked about is begin with prayer. Begin with prayer. You yourself individually with God, and then with your spouse. And then within that prayer time, that brings you back to the center of having faith. And remembering that God sees the bigger picture. We cannot see it sometimes, and that's why as Christians we live by faith and not by sight. So have that faith. I think another thing we talked about is working on yourself in that time, and then understanding what's happening with you, and understanding that, communicating with your spouse. So if it's both you guys are having your feelings, being able to talk those feelings out with one another, and come together. Being patient with one another. Because everybody's different and everybody deals with pain or hard times or processes hard times differently. So being patient. Within that time, encourage one another. Encourage each other to talk. Encourage each other to be in the moment. And in that process, be in the moment. Take it one day at a time. You're going to have those good days. You're going to have those bad days. But let's take it one day at a time, knowing that we're going to...
and allow yourself to process that moment. Like, it's not going to... You're not going to just feel better the next day. Like, allow yourself to have those feelings and allow your spouse to have those feelings. Allow them to be angry. There's a reason that he should be angry. Like, I should be angry. Like, allowing that person to work through those, moments within themselves.
I would say the next thing is work hard to continue to strive to go forward. Don't quit. Don't give up. If you come to agreement that y'all not giving up, don't give up. Because at the end of the day, this season is a temporary season. This is not going to last forever. So if you quit, you could have been 2 hours away from your call. 2 hours away. You could have been 1 day away from that miracle, whatever it may be. That breakthrough. So do not quit, because the season is temporary.
It's just temporary.
So
that's all we got, guys. We hope that you guys have enjoyed it. We hope
that was a little deeper than we've been doing in the past.
That's what I'm saying. A little different.
But hopefully folks enjoyed it and can take something from it, man.
Away from it.
Because we're going to all deal with it. Don't think you are exempt from hard times.
Absolutely.
Trials and tribulations will come in some form or fashion. So,
and the only thing you can control is how you react to the situation.
Absolutely. So we hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you subscribe to H&K Chronicles. Make sure you rate and review. 5 stars only. All right. And you can check us out on all social media platforms. Our username is Everyday with HK. Make sure you follow us, man. We got to keep growing on this thing. IG, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, everything, man. Just keep growing. And make sure you check out all our other episodes of H&K Chronicles. And you can even hit us up if you have any questions you want to send us or topics you want to see us talk about, man. Hit us up. You can email us at info@everydaywithhk.com and put the topic podcast questions or topics. And we're going to try to get all those up. So we love you, H&K Nation. We love everybody that's listening to us, man. Make sure you tell more folks about us, man. Keep sharing this. If you need some solutions to your problems, you want to hear more about how to continue to get better in your relationships and in your marriage, then let people know about Everyday with H&K. All right? Let them know.
I love you.
Until next time. I love you too, sweet thing. Until next time, we love you.
Love you guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Peace.